unfortunately, you can't really make the game safer. You can put all the sophisticated helmets that you want on players, but again, the helmet protects the skull. It does not protect the brain. It's up to the parent as to what they allow their kids to do. Part of the reason why I'm so vocal is I want parents to understand what they're signing their kids up for. This is not about bashing football. It's not about bashing the NFL.
Meanwhile, also learning about a new type of pressurized neck collar that they say can prevent mild concussions during sports. Dr. Siegel, first of all, when I was a kid, I remember in wrestling, I think I may have got a concussion. They said, well, shake it off, you got your bell rung. But this is serious. It's widespread. What are the symptoms?
Well, first of all, Eric, when I interviewed Harry Carson there, he was saying that you don't always know you have a concussion. He was saying you get out on the high school football field, somebody smacks you, and you think you're okay, you go right back in the game, and you were saying that that's what it was like when you were a kid. Meanwhile, later on, you could start suffering from inability to think clearly, you can develop headaches, you can develop nausea, you can develop depression, and you may not even know you had a concussion, so you can get hit several times.
What do you look for?
Carson said that you can get one smack and end up not the same for the rest of your life, even in high school.
What should you look for?
I think you would first of all look for somebody getting hit, somebody hitting you. Secondly, you look for a headache. Then you look for not feeling like yourself. You're having problems thinking clearly. You're having problems solving problems that people get you. Your judgment is off. You have nausea. You have vomiting. You don't know where this episode of nausea is coming from. Now they're developing something called an eye in the sky, where trainers and even neurologists are on the sidelines watching, because we need independent observers to look out to see when people get hit, not just in the NFL, not just in college football, but even in high school. And there should be a period of time, in my opinion, where after you've been smacked, where you have to stay out of the game. And if you've been diagnosed as having a concussion, you should not be able to get back on a field for a certain period of time.
But can they diagnose it right away, Dr. Samadi, right on the spot? And then also, does it matter how hard you're hit or where you're hit?
I think you may not be able to diagnose it immediately. And that's one of the reasons if you've had a real trauma to your brain, you have to stay off duty and you need to give your brain a break. Talking about no texting, no reading, and let it heal. And that's really, really important. Location is very important, and that depends on what symptoms you're going to have. If they hit in the back of the head, for example, your vision may change. If they hit in the front, that's where the personality may change. The side of the brain where the temporal lobes are, that's where the memory is. So that's really important. What is concussion? Concussion, the same thing that we have like a heart attack, this is a brain attack. So you have a big impact. So you have your brain that's going to hit something really quick. The skull may stop right there, but the brain is going to fluctuate back and forth, and that's when you're going to tear some of those vessels. You may have brain injury and bleeding, etc. When that happens, the extreme case of this is loss of consciousness, but you may have ringing in the ears. You may have some change in personality. For parents, it's really important to pay attention to some of the signs and symptoms. If the kid is not acting the same way as he always does, he's not laughing, he's getting a little depressed, etc., pay attention to that. How do you diagnose this? A lot of times it's a clinical judgment, but also getting an MRI and finding out if there's anything else going on.
Should you call 911 right away? I mean, we have a friend slip in the ice and got one, and for 6 months had...
Eric, if you lose consciousness, clearly you have to call 911 and get an ambulance there. If you just hit your head, David's point about imaging studies, we're not there yet. They're currently looking into very advanced imaging that are going to be able to tell you right on the spot whether you've suffered a concussion or not. It can be very subtle, and it may not show up on an MRI, but I'll tell you the most important thing. If you're a high school football player out there, you get one concussion, you're more prone to get other concussions. This is a cyclical thing, and it spirals out of control, and then the next thing you know, you're having a problem in school, or the next thing you know, you're having headaches years later.
Okay, but it's also important that if you're not behaving the way you should, going to an emergency room and getting that CAT scan is vital, because if there are abnormalities in the brain, and the sooner you find out, you can save that kid's life, and that's really important.
Can you get a CAT scan if you don't have insurance? Will they administer it under?
It's an emergency, ortho, and that's a very good point.
A CAT scan doesn't diagnose a concussion.
That's right. But
it will diagnose a brain injury, which can occur along with a concussion.
No, but you can't, excuse me, you can have other things that's going on as a result of the impact of concussion.
That's the key.
That can save the kid's life.
Bottom line, don't fool around. If you think you have one, go to the emergency room.
Absolutely.
Repeated concussion is extremely fatal, because if you're not recovered from the first one, you're back in again. That's when these kids can die. So keep them off. It's not a big deal. It's not about ego. It's about saving your child.
And to your point, yes, it's an emergency, so they have to do all of those
100%.
procedures. Don't worry about what you're
Well, I mean, you can,
Yeah.
again, get brain injury and not die from this. I don't want to scare people out there. It's very
Right.
rare that someone's going to die from a concussion. But what isn't rare is that they can suffer brain damage. And that's something that's a subject of big debate and is in that movie that you talked about.
I actually want to scare parents. This is the only time I
Right,
want to scare
right.
parents, because the long-term effect of this is depression, dementia, brain,
Repeated
and memory
concussion.
loss.
Repeated
So
concussion.
I want you to be scared and overreact in this particular case than just give them some Tylenol and say this is another concussion.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Very good
Different
advice,
points.
docs. Okay.